Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, it is a movement that some historians say, quote, changed the world, end quote. The American Civil Rights Movement, the struggles and the achievements from the early years of the era created new laws and new perspectives on racial equality in the United States. This morning, we talk with the author of a new book titled The U.S. Civil Rights Trail. It is a companion book based upon the historic trail of the same name that focuses on 120 landmarks in 15 states and Washington, D.C. Travelers and readers can learn the stories of the leaders as well as the foot soldiers in events that civil rights historians have called a movement that changed the world. The U.S. Civil Rights Trail has attracted hundreds of thousands to follow the achievements as well as the horrors of the people dedicated to equal rights. According to its author, the book champions their stories and the historic sites. The book, he says, provides a powerful testimony about Americans who came together to forge a more inclusive and equitable future. Our guest this morning is SENTELL, author of the United States Civil Rights Trail. He's also the director of the Alabama Tourism Department. This book is a companion volume for those who want to learn about history by visiting the sites across America. Or if they can't physically travel, the book assists the mind's eye in a visit to these historically important landmarks. So stay with us as we explore the triumphs and tragedies of this very important time in American history. Perspectives continues after this quick break. Our very special guest today, SENTELL. He has really changed the focus of the history and the tourism market here in the state of Alabama and throughout the South. And one of the newest results is the official United States Civil Rights Trail. The book by SENTELL to give us a guide to be able to see the history of what happened here in the Deep South. Lee, thanks for joining us this morning. You know, as I look at the book and sharing some of the information that you have told me here in the last few minutes that we've talked as well, I love the subtitle here, What Happened Here Changed the World. And not only the world, but people that you knew personally as well. Let's talk about how you decided to use that as the subtitle.
It just came naturally. When we created the Alabama Civil Rights Trail about 15 or 16 years ago, I started using the phrase, what happened in Alabama changed the world. And because when you look at Selma, Montgomery, and Tuskegee, and Birmingham, and other places, major stuff happened over the period of 50, 60 years. And of course, when we got bigger with this U.S. Civil Rights Trail, which is particularly across the Deep South, it's saying it's true. What happened in the Deep South changed the world.
One of the things that was shared, I will quote that from Dr. King, you mentioned in the book itself, it says that one day the South will recognize its real heroes. And this is not easy when you talk about what has happened in the past, and we're talking about people that are actually still living today, their parents, their grandparents, who were part of the events that took place here that shaped this country in the 60s. What's your thought when you hear that and read that statement again from Dr. King, that one day the South will recognize its real heroes?
Well, we're trying to be a part of that with the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. And like I said, first, the Alabama Civil Rights Trail. Mobile was blessed in that Mobile had leaders, black and white, who talked to one another. And the gentleman who wrote so many letters that it kept a conversation through the newspapers, so that there was, I think, less tension in Mobile. It's certainly less conflict. But that's what we're trying to do with this book, because some of these people really are still alive. And I've done some historic markers for some of these people, Joseph Lowry and others that have since passed away when we were doing those projects. Fred Gray from Tuskegee, certainly a fine guy, and this is not the thing to say, but when he passes away, he will have a very large obituary in the New York Times, because people don't really appreciate what he did as a very young man to be the attorney not only for Rosa Parks, but Martin Luther King as well.
While the world is still healing from recent events in the fight for racial justice, cultural tourism is more relevant than ever. Now that's a quote from you.
Right.
Why you say so?
All you have to do is come to Montgomery, and you will see motor coaches from all over the country. Of course, it's paused a little bit right now because of COVID, but the Equal Justice Initiative, Brian Stevenson's organization, they have done an amazing job with the lynching memorial and the new museum, which opens this month. It is the first year they were open, 400,000 people came to see it. And the second year, 500,000 people. That made it the #2 attraction after the Space and Rocket Center in this state. And for people to come, and these are people mostly from outside the South.
Yes.
People are coming and telling their friends about it because the EJI Memorial and the new Legacy Museum, which is 51,000 square feet. The original museum was 11,000 square feet, and this is almost 5 times the size, and it is it's awesome.
That's a very moving place to be able to go and reflect on the history of the South, our nation, of course, our state, and as recognizing the history of a people here in the Deep South. You've been involved with tourism as the director of Alabama's tourism for nearly 20 years now, and as you mentioned, organizing things for the state prior to that. The trail has garnered regional and international acclaim now since the year 2018, the launch of that. How do you feel about what has happened and people responding to this history here in Alabama?
To be honest, I'm a little surprised by the overwhelming acceptance of it. We worked together with the 12 Southern tourism directors, in addition to myself, and everybody across the South wanted to get the attractions and the museums in their states recognized as part of this. I'm sort of impressed and surprised in the last few years how many people wanted to be part of the Civil Rights Trail. And the rule sort of is this is a tourist marketing campaign. Mm-hmm. You have to already be welcoming and attracting motor coach groups and church groups and large number of student groups that are already coming. But it's never been better represented than what EJI has done in Montgomery. But it has made other communities across the South want to get more acceptance and more exposure for their tourism assets.
You've mentioned some places that made lasting impressions on me. The lynching museum there in Montgomery is quite a time when you're there, and we did see people coming on buses from Minnesota and other places across the country. And then, of course, the Slave Museum of #2, I guess, part of that downtown, showing the warehouses and what took place in Alabama in Montgomery being one of the key spots. It was just an amazing experience. What sticks out with you? You had a pleasure of working with Dr. Bernice King, who of course is the youngest child of Dr. King and his wife Coretta Scott King. Of all the things that you've done in this compilation, what really stands out with you?
Well, I first met her, I guess it was in almost 10 years ago. I was in a class of Leadership Birmingham, and each class is supposed to do a project. And I realized there was no historic marker where Dr. King wrote Letter from Birmingham Jail. I asked people who work at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, where is the jail, or where was the jail? And 2 of the 3 answers were wrong. And those were staff people. So I thought that by unveiling a marker on the 50th anniversary of the letter, with Bernice King, that would signal to people that that building is still there. It's the current jail. It's the same jail that Dr. King was in. Now, the wing he was in has been demolished, but the gate or the cell door is a major exhibit inside the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute.
Lee, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of things that led you on this journey back years ago and the influence that they've had in your life and making some things happen, and your story about Rosa Parks and Montgomery. So we look forward to learning more today as we talk about your book, The Civil Rights Trail, What Happened Here Changed the World. We'll talk more with Lee SENTELL in just a moment as Perspectives continues. A very special guest today, Lee SENTELL, author of the new Civil Rights Trail, the official United States Civil Rights Trail, What Happened Here Changed the World. Lee, we were talking and you shared with me that your mother, as well as when you were at Auburn, a couple of pivotal events in your journey. Tell us, how important is your mom in this equation of what you've accomplished?
Well, people ask me how I got involved in civil rights as history and also as a tourism product. My mother was a history teacher, and so my twin sister and I, every night, we got the World Book Encyclopedia down long before the internet, and Mother was sort of an additional teacher in addition to the one that we had in school. So I've just always been interested in history, and our family would go on history vacations. I was a big fan of Abraham Lincoln when I was in the 4th grade, and when we went to Hodgenville, Kentucky, I felt like, and saw the replica log cabin. I mean, it was just like, this is as good as it gets.
You know, my dad was also a history teacher in middle school for a while before he went into the business community, and so I know a lot of my love for history goes back to that. Now, you attended Auburn, and while at Auburn, some things were going on that you decided to attend. Tell us about that.
Well, I was a student at Auburn in '65 during the Selma March, and when I knew that there would be just, you know, mobs of people, but when I heard that there was going to be that Harry Belafonte was putting an entertainment event on outside Montgomery, where the 2,000 people had camped, the marchers, and I heard that Nina Simone and other singers were going to be there, Harry Belafonte, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and others. And so I got a fraternity brother of mine, Michael Buffkin from Mobile, to go with me from Auburn to the St. Jude location outside of Montgomery, and saw the entertainment for about 30 minutes, and then Dr. King spoke, and it was just being an incredible presence. I guess we were probably about 20 feet from where he was, but there was a ring of spotlights outside pointing in, and what made me nervous was people who were outside that ring of lights could see in, but we could not see out. And after Dr. King spoke, I turned to Mike and I said, "We have not been shot yet, but I don't want to push this anymore." And so we went back to Auburn and didn't hear the rest of the entertainment. But that was the next night. Viola Liuzzo was shot between Selma and Montgomery, just because she had a black boy in the car with her. Wow. So I mean, my fear was not unfounded.
Now, what kind of effect did that have on your friend Michael as far as the experience that you exposed him to?
We had dinner in Atlanta, where he lives, a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't seen him probably in 20 years, but we talked about politics and things that night, and he said he was pretty apolitical until that evening, and he said that really opened, listening to Dr. King, that opened his eyes to things that he never thought about, because from the perspective of being a white person, you know, he heard things that he didn't know, that he hadn't experienced, and so he said it had a profound change on his outlook on a lot of things.
Now, Lee, you've had a life of sparking change, and not just people such as Michael, but it also in the attitude of leadership in a city. What happened with Rosa Parks when you discovered that there was no memorial or any type of marker there in Montgomery?
Well, in 1992, I wanted to be state tourism director. And so people thought of me as the guy at the Space and Rocket Center at Space Camp because I'd been there for 10 years. And so I decided to travel the state and write a book called The Best of Alabama. And in the basement of Martin Luther King's church on Dexter Avenue, I bought one pamphlet, and it told where Rosa Parks got on the bus. Bought another booklet that said where she got arrested. So I went about 6 blocks away to those 2 locations that were 2 blocks apart, and looking for the historic marker. There was no marker in either place. There was not a single civil rights marker in Montgomery in the early 90s, except the one at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And so I complained to the black congressman, and I got a call back from his office the next day, and they said, we're going to take care of the marker. Well, Troy State University owned property in downtown Montgomery where they had a campus, and they had bought the block of the Empire Theater. Rosa Parks was arrested at the Empire Theater exit because a lot of people were getting out of the 3 o'clock movie at 5 o'clock. And so it's not correct to say Rosa Parks got up for a white man. It was not just a particular white man, but it was a bunch of people. She was legal when she sat down with more people getting on the bus than where blacks could sit, moved farther back. And so the president of Troy could see that historic marker, and they had planned to demolish the movie theater and everything else and build a 5-story parking deck. But that marker alerted them to the fact that they owned holy ground. And as a result, they created the Rosa Parks Museum and Library on that block, and I'm happy to say that I'm on that board.
Lee, we thank you for your activism and all of this. We've just got about 3 minutes. Let's hit a couple of quick points here. Now, when we talk about this tourism, it's not just for folks to enjoy, but it's also impacting the economy. Give us an idea of how many millions of people are visiting and how many millions of dollars are being generated by it.
The New York Times asked us how many, this I think 3 years ago, asked us how many people were going to do the Civil Rights Trail, which we had announced. And we projected about 5 million people would do it the next year. And we did surveys, and we found that we were pretty close on target. It's become a major destination. The New York Times and the National Geographic, they have tour groups scheduled to come through Alabama this fall, and European groups are going to bring even larger groups. As soon as COVID gets under control, it's going to be really a big growth.
My goodness.
And I know you're going to mention that I have a book signing.
Oh yeah, we aren't going to leave that out. And I wanted you to hit one other point here,
okay,
very quickly before that. And I'm trying to make sure we get everything in because it's so exciting talking to you and you're sharing this information. If I get the book, what will the book allow me to do since it's talking about the trail?
Well, we have a QR code. I'm an analog person, but it's a QR code where you scan the QR code and then and look at a couple of page spreads in the book, and they come to life, and videos pop up, and it's just amazing.
It's a beautiful book, and some of the pictures are just incredible ones that we'll always remember. And you've got the one there with Rosa Parks. We'll be showing more of that in our post-production. But remind us where you will be here in Mobile coming up for the book signing.
I will be at the Page and Palette in Fairhope on Thursday, and so I appreciate people coming by, and maybe I can say hello.
Well, they will indeed be thrilled as well as educated and exposed to some incredible history through your life, because you've lived this thing, not just deciding to do a book. And we appreciate all of your input and the things that you've done throughout the years to make a difference here in the state and in the South and across the country. And as you say in the book, this is all about international tourism now and people coming to see the history of our area. So Lee, congratulations on the new book. We hope that this will raise proceeds to help in one of the causes for this as well. Lee SENTELL, our very special guest today. The Civil Rights Trail, what happened here, changed the world.
Thank you.
And for more information on Lee SENTELL's book, you can visit the website at the official uscrtbook.com. The companion book to the historical landmarks is designed to, as Lee mentioned, bring the stories and the history of the American Civil Rights Movement to life. You can also get more information by checking out the website at tourism.alabama.gov. Well, next up on Perspectives, if you know any older Marine Corps veterans, you may have heard the term Montford Point Marine. Now, those still living today would be in their 80s and one of just 20,000 recruits to train at the North Carolina boot camp near Camp Lejeune. Now, these African-American men who first arrived there in August of 1942, had to build their own segregated recruit training facility, Montford Point. Now, we'll talk about their history with the association's national president and the National Journal director joining us here on Perspectives. So next Saturday morning, join us here as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. And of course, if you have any ideas, please drop that out to us here at Perspectives at fox10tv.com. I'm Eric Reynolds, wishing you a great week ahead.
Thanks for watching Fox 10 News. Watch us live wherever you are, on our mobile, our streaming news app, and you can also watch us on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV.